What's going on, everyone? Just taking a look at the market real quick. Not looking terrible. I mean, we're back over 1.6. I mean, a couple hundred billion has came back in. So let's stay optimistic. Starting to see a little bit of green creep back in. Not much, but I think that'll change as the day goes on. Oh, H-bar. Hello. Anyway, so to go over some things, let me get my glasses on from the case yesterday. I'm going to make this part of the video pretty quick just because I'm just kind of like bouncing through somebody else's feed. Yeah, this is interesting. Bitcoin falls after China calls for crackdown on Bitcoin mining and trading behavior. Do not buy this, man. We'll get into this. I think coal mining is going to be the only one that really is affected, and hydro will be allowed still. I read a whole article on that and posted it in the group. Just be careful with this. Don't make decisions on sudden news cases, I'm telling you. It's not financial advice, but definitely how I behave. John Deaton said, by the way, John Deaton, he is like spearheading the class action lawsuit against the SEC on behalf of the XRP holders who held XRP at the time of the lawsuit, which resulted in the delisting of XRP around the globe, which cost people billions of dollars. You know, it's like a backup Bradley over there at Digital Perspectives always says, due to the dereliction of duty and intimidation tactics of the SEC, and that's usually when he's referring to the price of XRP and some of this stuff. But like John says here, when you have a $2 billion asset class, it gets noticed but not feared. When you achieve $2 trillion status and companies are beginning to use you as a reserve assets on their balance sheets, it gets regulated. The industry desperately needs a crypto consortium established. And remember, guys, regulation is not a bad thing. It will be for some of these assets. Believe that. A lot of these assets that we're trading today, they will not be here probably a year from now. That's my opinion. We'll see what happens. But I think a lot of these just random coins that are just flying around, I don't think they survive. That's why I'm a utility maxi. They have a use. People do use them for things now, and they're being developed every day. And I don't know. The SEC had no case law on point, just like Ripple had none with the MOUs. As Judge Netburn ruled with the MOUs, the fact that the practice or the privilege might be unfair to one side doesn't mean you get what you want. She is a very fair lady. You can tell she is by the book, and she is not putting up with any nonsense. He basically argued it would be unfair. I believe the judge will not order Ripple to turn over the documents. The fair notice defense is an objective defense. It's based on what a reasonable person or market participant would believe based on the SEC's actions and inactions. So this is all kind of a thing here. Jeremy Hogan, if you can look him up on Twitter, he's going to be here. Let me just pop him up for you guys real quick. You can pause it if you want to grab Attorney Jeremy 1. He does a lot of stuff with the XRP stuff. A lot of great stuff. He put out a video last night, but we're not gonna watch it. Today demonstrated that Ripple and XRP holders are lucky. Judge Netburn, along with Judge Torres, have been assigned this case. Judge Netburn is always prepared and understands the issues and asks insightful questions of the attorneys. I agree with that. I listened into the whole thing. The SEC writes that XRP traded even in the secondary market is the embodiment of those facts, circumstances, promises, and expectations, and today represents that investment contract. Page 24 of its opposition. Translation: XRP itself is a security. Does not apply to underwriters or issuers. Exchanges are considered underwriters and issuers and not exempt. An issuer is anyone who is selling a security. Section 4 exemptions only apply to people who have no intent to resale. So if you might sell XRP at a target price, you are not exempt. Every sale of XRP is at stake and being alleged as a security. I hope we can get a shot at oral argument to make this case. And what's interesting about that is they had been on the record once before. They were asked if that is what they were stating, and they said, no, we are stating that the ones sold by Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson were sold as securities. So it's interesting. It kind of gets ping-ponged around with what they're really saying here. Something to keep an eye on. I'm sure some transcripts will be coming out in the next couple of days. I'll make sure to get those in the group and everything so you guys can have them. Attorney Seal, another great one to follow. I think the Ripple lawyers were smart enough to recognize that when the judge is making your arguments for you, you don't have to overcomplicate your submissions. It was a good day, and I agree with that. James K. Fallon, Elon, not sure how you say it. He is a former federal prosecutor, so he posts some great stuff related to law as well. This is an updated list of upcoming events around the case. I will leave this on a screen. You know, it's just more responses, motions, and letter replies from what I'm seeing. On to some other stuff. The IMF weekend read this morning. The IMF on global taxation. We must come together to create an international tax system that is designed for the 21st century. And you can see that ending the pandemic, global taxation, climate change. We all know how often we're hearing that. Back to the basics. You know, they have a $50 billion plan to bring the pandemic under control, financing for African economies, which you guys see ripple in a lot of these companies. They're very big in Africa because those people are at a huge disadvantage the way the governments and economies are ran over there. Multilateralism in the context of vaccines, taxation, and climate change. Climate change. Hello. Monitoring and I don't care if you believe this. This does not matter what you think is or isn't real or is or isn't happening. This is what is being said around the world. So whether you think it's real or not, this is something that, whether you want to consider it being addressed or just being done, it is happening, people. Monitoring pandemic-related spending for transparency and accountability, and back to basic economic explainers. On that note, let's dive right in. Bam. It is broadly in the interest of countries and of the private sector to limit tax competition and the proliferation of chaotic unilateral tax measures. We must come together to create an international tax system that is designed for the 21st century, one that is simplified, harmonized, predictable, and fair, thus instilling broad public trust. Multilateral efforts are already underway with the inclusive framework initiated by the OECD, which now includes 139 countries. The IMF supports the inclusion framework, and we are optimistic about a global agreement this year. This year, guys. Now, if you're not familiar with the IMF, they are the International Monetary Fund. They are a big deal. This is the stuff that they're got going on. You know, just to give you a brief view of their website and to explain to you a little bit more about who they actually are. The International Monetary Fund is an organization of 190 countries working to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, and promote high employment and sustainable economic growth and reduce poverty around the world. So this is a big deal. The IMF is not a small thing. You know, just pay attention to that. There's a big narrative building. And you say global cooperation. I am a huge backer of the idea that when everyone is ready to launch into the fully digital world, we will all do it at the same time. I think it has to happen that way. Just like, you know, Ripple's whole plan to, well, if it is their whole plan, you know, to be the main thing, you know, which it sounds like it is. And they're not trying to replace any money. They're trying to transport and move money for these banks. They're not trying to challenge the money. Don't get it confused with that. But in order for those ledgers to work, you have to have somebody on the other side. You can't have just one person join. It doesn't work that way. How are you going to, you know what I mean? You can't just use the technology to send money to yourself. So you have to create a network that will be tested and launched simultaneously, in my opinion. That's where MoneyGram and Western Union, who MoneyGram has been used. They just actually sold all their MoneyGram stock yesterday. And now they are working with Western Union. You know, they also work with Bank of America. You know, they're getting there. Back to the Chinese narrative. The digital asset investor, who you better be following on both YouTube and Twitter, he is not a financial advisor, but he used to be. And he is an extremely smart man. He follows the breadcrumbs like nobody's business. I've never seen anybody who snags word, like he says all the time, words mean things, folks. And he will put together something. Well, it blows my mind every time I watch one of his videos. The Chinese playbook. I've seen it every single time the market got red hot for 8 years. Every single time it was a big nothing and a buying opportunity. Only difference this time, crypto is here to stay. No, I don't need to. I already read the damn article earlier. It's just his post. Anyway. Okay, so this is from April 8th. I posted this in the group. We'll play it one more time With what we are seeing now, you can bet China is playing games with the Bitcoin and crypto in general. Crypto has always been about a much bigger war. Digital currency wars, reserve currency wars. I'm telling you, man, this is a lot bigger than people think it is. Let's watch
From China's point of view, they want to get, they don't like the U.S. having this reserve currency because it gives us, a lot of leverage over, Iranian oil supply chains and all sorts of things like that. They don't want the renminbi to become a reserve currency because then you have to open your capital account and you have to do all sorts of things that they really don't want to do. I think the euro, you could think of as, was in part a Chinese weapon against the dollar. It didn't, the last decade it hasn't quite worked out that way, but that was, China would have liked to see two reserve currencies like the euro. And, even though I'm sort of a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin maximalist person, I do wonder whether at this point Bitcoin is also should also be thought in part as a Chinese financial weapon against the U.S., where it threatens fiat money, but it especially threatens the U.S. Dollar, and China wants to do things to weaken it. So it's sort of China is long Bitcoin, and perhaps from a geopolitical perspective, the U.S. should be a little bit be asking some tougher questions about exactly how that works. But some internal stable coin in China, that's not a real cryptocurrency. That's just that's just some sort of totalitarian measuring device.
So that's what Peter Thiel had to say. And if you're not familiar with Peter Thiel, he was the co-founder of PayPal along with Elon Musk. And in 1999, this was planned long ago, PayPal Galactic announced in 2013, and they have never launched anything since. And it's the same year that the Thiel's Founders Fund invests in Ripple to build a better Bitcoin and the Internet of Value. Check this out.
Kind of choice governments like China, India, some of these other countries are going to face. They will either have to shut down the telecommunications network and make it illegal for you to own a cell phone, or they will have to basically give up the kind of monetary sovereignty they've had and the enormous power that they've been able to wield as a result of this kind of sovereignty over the last many years. And I think this process is already full-fledged. The dollarization worldwide is going to be accelerated enormously by the technology. Now, the second theme is a little bit more speculative, and that is that getting rid of money altogether, going from digital dollars, from any kind of government-backed currency to purely private currencies. And what a private currency, or what private money, I think, fundamentally means is that there is no medium of exchange. You exchange value for value rather than exchanging value for something the government says has value for value. And whenever you have this intermediate step of the government saying something has value, that's where you have the subterfuge, the sort of legerdemain come in, the game of musical chairs, where every now and then a chair gets pulled out and it turns out that you're the one holding a dollar bill that's all of a sudden become worth a little bit less. And the kind of exchange of value for value, the classic model would have been some sort of a barter model. That obviously has enormous transaction costs associated with it. These transaction costs go down in a digital age. And the kind of model that I think is the most likely to take place is one where you have other kinds of financial instruments that are very liquid. The one I would cite in the UML disagreement, it's a disagreement on emphasis, is I don't think the big fights on this are going to be fought in Washington, D.C. I think that, and actually it's for all the reasons Richard cited. The people in D.C. are completely backwards. They don't understand any of the technology, and even to the extent they can, it can't be stopped. You cannot stop things on the level of Washington, D.C. in terms of shutting down these encryption protocols, things like that.
So yeah, that's what he was saying back then. And I've shown you guys the PayPal Galactic thing before. So you hear him talking about all this stuff. He's, and then here you have Elon. Let's get back to him. The true battle is between fiat and crypto. On balance, I support the latter. Well, we already know that. And now let's get back to them talking about, the Internet of Value, a better Bitcoin, Peter Thiel investing in Ripple in 1999, all this crazy, or in 2013, excuse me. That was 1999 where he was talking. So SpaceX wins approval for lower Starlink orbits, overcoming rival objections. Amazon actually said it was a positive move forward, I think, for the entire industry is what they meant. I guess this will allow for dead satellites in the constellation to be steered into a fiery death into the Earth's atmosphere. Is that what it says here? Yeah, a fiery end, excuse me. Death sounded better to me. But anyway, so SpaceX, Starlink, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, 1999, better Bitcoin, 2013, Internet of Value, all this stuff, right? Well, then this happened. Centrifuge prices rally 65% after announcing Starlink integration. This was 6 days. This article was 6 days away from the one I just showed you. So this was in, a week's time. Next week, we'll be testing a DARP node on SpaceX Starlink. Our network can use nearly any device or infrastructure to find faster pathways for your internet traffic using the NOIA token. We'll share early results with initial testing. Cheers, Elon Musk. And you can't tell me that this is on one satellite. That makes no sense. Time to grow, node program. They'll have staking, the Genesis event, Windows, Mac apps, VPN launch, DAO versions, plus a few surprises, all in 60 days. So, all this has been happening with this token. I own it. It's down big time. Not financial advice, but I went crazy when I first saw this just because I believe that's what the whole SpaceX Starlink, I think the whole thing is just to create the Internet of Value. Of course, it'll support internet to all corners of the world, but I think the root reasoning behind that is so we can really expand the IOV, and that's just my opinion. I'm not going to get in. This is not like a price call or anything like that, but I know everybody's freaking out about the major dip that just happened. And look, this is what's been happening for the last couple years. I mean, at some point, you have to have a retracement. I mean, these are nothing in comparison to like the rate at which we've been rolling. I mean, you get into like, well, I want you to notice though, they always say when in doubt, zoom out. So I'm on the daily chart. You go to the 15-minute chart, it's looking way different. But on the daily, if you notice, this is the total altcoin market cap. As we began to rage, here's our all-time high, right, at this point. So we went into a little retracement and started to come back up, and you can see what we're touching. And we smash all-time high, we come back down, and we do a little tap, and then we launch. Well, look at where these all-time highs are lining up. They're lining up right at the bottom of these wicks. So to me, you can see, and then here's where the major breakout, started here. So right in the range of the all-time high and the major breakout, you had where it tested again here, and now it's testing again here. So like, I don't think that this is a crazy thing to look at. You will see it in repetition. This is what blows my mind with all this stuff. Again, you had Bitcoin rage to an all-time high. Look at that. We're in that range right here where it's moving around. And then when it dropped to, back test itself, it lines right up with that red candle over there. And you can already see these candles are slowly working their way back up. This is not a prediction. This is not anything like that. It's just something I'm noticing. I mean, you can see it over and over again where some of these areas are, testing themselves. This is where, it had another pop right there. Again, had an all-time high way back here for XRP. And then you look right here, it gets tested again, doesn't break out, gets rejected. We go back into some consolidation more than anything. I mean, it's kind of a wide range, but then it gets back over here, tested again, it finally pops. You get a new, well, it's not all-time highs at this point, but just for the cycle. All-time high was close to $4. But then you just look right here where it was popping. I mean, you're testing the same area again. It went up, it came down. You're testing it. Could this just be a massive double tap back test and you just don't see it because we're looking into close? Because, I mean, you see it. You're seeing it on all of them. Here we go again. ETH. Raging, right? Boom. Hits its all-time high. Hits some resistance. Gets knocked down. Comes back up. It's testing that resistance again. Comes down. And then it finally breaks loose. Well, look at all those points. They're all touching. So you can see that it's a level in the pricing that, It's relevant. And it looks like to me it dropped down there, hit it, and it looks to me like it's working its way back up. I mean, you're seeing it on all of these ones, even the ones that don't have as much price history to look at. Let's bring this down just a bit here. Here you have BNB, the Binance coin. It's making its way, boom, hits its high. Look at that. I mean, you're still right in that range. Comes down here, gets rejected, comes up, kind of tested again. You're in this range. Where does it finally break out and go on a massive bull run? Right here in this range. Boom, 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 boom. Now we're what? We're testing it again. I mean, you see where it's all right there. XLM. You know, I'm just hopping around the market so we have different things to look at. Boom, you hit an all-time high. You kind of come down into here. It gets rejected. It tries to touch in there again. Gets rejected. Hits it again, breaks loose, comes back, test it there. You know, you can see it fighting through a similar situation here until it gets up into this range where its all-time high came in here. And if you look, again, we're just in that range. It goes up, comes down, you're testing in this range. You know, and you see they start to get higher, and I just see where it's always coming to these same areas. And then eventually you notice some of them, that they become irrelevant as you work your way up. Like, you don't come back down to all of them. What do we have here? H-bar. H-bar is going to look a little bit different just because, you know, this coin's only a year and a half old. But again, it's, you know, hitting an all-time high right here in that same range. Even had a little test there. Comes down just a bit, and I mean, you see right here where it goes back to launch again. If I line my cursor up, look at that. You're almost touching that last back test right there. So all I'm saying here, I'm not making any predictions. I do expect this upward trend that we see here on the daily, boom, 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 boom. I expect that to continue. I absolutely do. I think we're in a range where we're in a triangle that's right somewhere in here, and once we break out of it, I think it's, you know, that is not financial advice. That is an expectation of mine, though. And with that being said, we'll move on to this. This is something I was shown by my roommate. You can set these up. It's pretty cool. You have various strategies. Like the classic grid is the main one. You can basically set a range of price, you know, within a couple cents, a couple dollars, however you want to set it up. And you can take funds with like some Tether or some USDC or whatever. They have all kinds of pairings. You'd have to go look. It only works on the mobile app, not on the desktop. But you can set up a little AI thing to where you have all these things set up, and instead of having to do all these stop limits and, you know, all this stuff yourself, you can basically set it on this and it'll auto do it for you. You just want to watch it as the price moves in large amounts in either direction. You'll want to reset your parameters, but it looks pretty cool. I might try it out, and maybe I'll let you guys follow what's going on there. You know, you select the strategy, start earning. I've seen a lot of them. They tend to be profitable. One guy that was paid by KuCoin to do a video, he said that he found that if he would have just held coins a lot of the times, he'd have made a little bit more, but that it was roughly in the same area. You still were outperforming a lot of other things. And it was brought to my attention by a post by my buddy Trevor, who is in the group. He was just talking about how, you know, with these massive dips and everything going on and everything kind of settling down and it looking like this might be the time to really get into crypto. Like, we thought it was already here, and shout out to him for bringing that up in the group today. So I'm going to try my best over this next week to pump out a couple videos on each of the exchanges I use, just so we can get a little more familiar with how do you buy crypto. If I buy crypto here, how do I get it over here so I can buy this other thing? I know that's a big barrier for a lot of people, and we want to take care of that for you so we can all get moving forward. And with that being said, I'm going to hop off here, and I'll see you guys on the next one.